One of my faves. Thank you for being here, Miss Karen. All right, so Catherine, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, well, I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Catherine, and I'm gonna let her take it from here.
Thank you. Well, it is a pleasure being here with all of you. Thank you for joining us for this exciting interview with Major Kenneth Green. This is his book, Personal Instruments of Power, Surviving the Trump Era. And we all know that we need all the help we can, all the encouragement, all of the skills to make it through this crazy, crazy time that we find ourselves in. So the major takeaway that I would like for us to have after this discussion, other than A, you need to buy the book. B, please buy the book for someone that you love. And C, just identifying what areas of your personal power that you can enhance and work on. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Major Green just to tell us about yourself and this wonderful book and how it was inspired.
The book was inspired based on the first Trump administration, all the chaos that was going on. And I had started writing it, but then I set it on the shelf because Kamala and Biden came into office. Then when Trump was reelected, I said it's time to put it back off and write it again, right? So it's to deal with all the chaos that's going on, right? Chaos across the board. So that's the reason I wrote it. Yep.
And so just so you guys know, I'm going to ask him, I want the book, once you see it and thumb through it, I want you to take a look at it, get intimately acquainted with it. It does have exercises in it and various scenarios, just so, you know, you're not just reading it, you can actually take the information and apply it to your everyday life, make you really think about it and process it and digest it. So with that in mind, first scenario, you just said surviving this crazy time, and that's what we've been talking about. So it's been extremely, extremely chaotic. The news cycles change, feels like every 5 seconds. And got a lot of information flooding to us. How, what, what impact does this have on our personal power? And how can we best manage it?
The misinformation and disinformation that's going
Yes.
about. Yeah. So causes instability, right? Because if you don't take time to vet information, you're losing discernment, right? You get a set of information presented to you. First is discernment, right? Most people, for some reason, they'll have the discernment, won't listen to that, right? But you have to take the information and vet it against other information, right? Sources of truth. And so you have to do your research against that information and make sure it's factual first. So you vet the information, and then that creates stability, right? Because all the instability, the misinformation, disinformation causes instability. It causes emotional stress, financial stress, etc. When you see certain things in the media and present it to you. But personal information powers, how you absorb that information, discernment, how you vet that information, how you turn that into intelligence power to use to your benefit. So that's the integrated approach that the book presents, that framework.
So you spoke on finances, and I think that's what the key thing is because it feels like we're in a cycle of losing a lot right now when it comes to finances. A lot of people have lost their jobs. People are starting to be faced with losing various benefits, whether it's SNAP, whether it's insurance, things of that nature. And we talk about it's a lot of being destabilized in the book. How do you get that stabilization back
From a financial standpoint,
from a financial
so
standpoint?
first is personal economic power. What that means is, first of all, multiple streams of income, not relying on one income because you become a slave to that one income. Anything happens, your life is totally disrupted. So multiple streams of income, and then being able to take that income, invest it, stocks, bonds, open up a LLC, your business, learning how to channel expenses through your LLC. Um, but that's where you gain your stability financially is making sure that your economic power is as efficient and as progressive as you can make that by doing that. This leads to education, skill set, right? So that you can make the money that, you desire to make, and then make sure that taking that money and make sure it's invested properly. That's stabilizing your economic environment right there, which ties into the other powers, right? Learn to say no. But that ties into law enforcement power. Learn to say no to certain individuals in terms of loans and things like that, right? Then it leads into personal financial power. Economic power is making the money. How do I get it? How do I bring it in? Financial power is about how do I keep the money.
Right.
So that's learning how to budget, tax code, how to apply that so that all your money's not going back to the government from a tax standpoint. Those are the things that help balance and keep you stabilized emotionally when you're financially and economically balanced.
Okay, so we're gonna take this. So I just say, for instance, I noticed that I had all my eggs in one basket,
Right.
and I've already lost this job. How do I keep everything else from just sliding downhill from a power perspective?
Yeah, you saying you lost the job, you had your eggs in one basket,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's say you had a job, you had a 401k, right? And you had money invested in that 401k. So even though you lost your job, it's an opportunity to, again, it's learning tax law, right? Learning how to run an LLC or your own company. There's ways to take that money, that 401k money, right? And invest it in the right dividends and capital gain payments, launching your LLC, your business, right? For whether inventory, whatever the business is, service, skill sets, etc., to get to restabilize that environment, right? So severance money. Usually when you get laid off, you get a severance package. Being smart about what you do with that in terms of getting back on your feet. But prior to that, you don't want to get laid off without having the skill set. So that doesn't matter, right? If I have the skill set, training, certifications, even if I do get laid off, right, I want to make sure I have that level of education, skill set, certified, so that I can move on to the next job, right? But I always tell people keep multiple streams of income. Have your business on the side, have your stocks paying your dividends, capital gains, real estate, right? John O'Brien talks about making money while you sleep, right? That comes from the appreciation of assets while you sleep, right? I have real estate, it appreciates, I'm making money, right? If I have stocks and bonds, I have dividends, capital gains, making money while I'm asleep. So that's what he's talking about when he says making money while you sleep. So that's what you want to do economically. Too many people have all their eggs in one basket, depend on one income, and eventually a storm's coming, right? Especially with AI being rolled in right now. Storm's coming, right? So get your eggs out of more than one basket, right? And invest in get right stocks and bonds. See your broker. If you don't have the education, go see a broker, right? Make sure that he's invested. Tell him what you're looking for: multiple streams of income, dividends, capital gains, etc.
So you mentioned go back, keep your degree, get your certifications in various fields. And a lot of us, I will raise my hand. I raise my hand. A lot of us, when it's almost like the careers happen to us sometimes. We're just so happy that the door finally creaked open and we were able to walk through and claim that position. We didn't think about our purpose before we entered into that and start growing into that role, and now the role is gone.
Right.
And I know purpose is a big part of the foundation of power strategy.
Right. Before you even start the book is understanding your purpose, understanding first your talents and your skill set. What am I good at, right? What am I good at and I love doing first. So that's just the framework for where I want to go in that position. I'm good at this skill set. I love doing it. Now let's make sure that once I establish this I can take these instruments of power and start to apply them towards that purpose, right? So it's a game. It's a game you have to play. It's a strategy because government policy set the environment, right, for what industries are paying certain skill sets, et cetera, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna look at what I'm good at, what I'm talented at. But if that's in a position, if that's a path or career path that's not paying any money out here that you can survive on based on your goals and objectives, then look at that secondary thing, right, that you're interested in and you would mind being in until you can get to a point where you can live off that first value or objective that you're looking for from a career standpoint, right? So multiple streams of income, getting the certifications, staying up on society, up on economics, up on government policies and procedures that's going to drive the market, right? So you have to continually, that's back to your personal information power, what you intake, what you understand, turning that into intelligence, and then applying that back to your life. If I know the market is moving towards AI, I better go get some kind of AI training, right? Something, prompt engineering, agentic AI, generative AI, because everything's going that way, right? It's going to impact you one way or another. So if you're still in the market, you're still working, is making sure that you go get that knowledge, because it's gonna impact you one way or another.
You're right. You're right. And I've been looking recently at even stocks and things of that nature that are impact that will hinge on whether the market and AI kind of goes up or down. So I've been studying that, just sharing, just sharing. And I know you do practice what you preach because I know your portfolio is diversified, but I think fear, and we talked about this a little bit, but fear is a big part of the basis of the excuses for why we don't do what we need to do.
Right, absolutely. So fear and faith can't dwell in the same house, right? So you have to lean on your faith. That's what's gonna come down to. Because if you're fearful, you're just not gonna make any progress. You're not gonna take those even establish a strategy in the first place. Being fearful, but fear and faith can't dwell in the same house. Again, it goes back to what are my values? What is my purpose in life? Stepping out on faith, right? But I have to do my part too, right? Works, you have to do your part and go and get the education, the certifications, the experience in order to move in that direction.
Okay. So you said that's the foundation, and we said that this book it's great for young people to read. Like I don't know where Delta and 3 are, but I know that Zeus has read this book and he's like 12. So, and he actually picked up on some things and he was able to ask you some really good questions the last time about the book. So, 12 years old, get it, college, get it, senior citizen, get it. It doesn't matter where you are, get it. You'll definitely find some things that will benefit your life in this book. But kind of shifting gears toward current events.
Right.
Now, I'm just going to say allegedly because none of this has been vetted out as being factual. But they're saying Nolan Wells, which was the teenager that lost his life over 4th of July weekend, uh, suspicious circumstances while he was out voting with his friends. They're saying that the argument came because he was asserting a boundary. He was allegedly getting ready to go play football and go do his training, and they were offering him substances, and he refused to take them, and that's what led to the break there, the disagreement. We'll say that. So I guess as a young person, what is the best way to establish that boundary to maintain your personal power?
Yeah. So first, I would say discernment first, because diplomacy, personal diplomacy power, right? Diplomatic power. Relationships that you build, being very strategic about those relationships. From my perspective, and I don't know any of those guys, right? But I would assume that there was some discernment at some point prior to even getting on the boat and going out with them. There's a level of discernment. I said a few minutes ago, we get discernment, we get intuition and discernment. And a lot of times we don't follow that. I don't know anything about the details or how he knew them, etc. But I would assume that somewhere there was some discernment and some intuition that would have prevented that from happening, right? If he had stood on that before. There are a lot of times, especially young kids, right? Peer pressure, want to be part of the group or whatever, and overlooking that discernment that says, hey, in this instance, I'm only African American. I'm in this environment. I don't know how kind of relation, how close he was with these guys. I have no idea, but I would assume that some level of intuition and discernment would have prevented that from happening.
And alignment. I think that's another big one. Common values, aligning yourself with people that have common values. And then we go on to the other story, Carmelo Anthony because when I was watching that, I thought about this book. And a lot of kids, it's like conflicting information because we tell our kids, defend yourself, fight for yourself, don't let anybody push you around and bully you, stand your ground, things of that nature. And then he decides to, but then this is the outcome. So when you're dealing with bullies, even adults deal with bullies at work and such. Bullies are everywhere, they even at church. So how do you manage
Yeah,
your bullies?
yeah, that's diplomatic power, personal diplomacy power, and how you do that, right? And I don't think enough about history has been passed down. I don't think. I think it's just being diluted in terms of advising our children about certain things in certain environments, and I think that's become diluted, especially since our communities are not all African American anymore. It's diluted out in the suburbs now, and you're not just getting that history of how things like that could spin out of control and not being prepared for it, right? Because I know when I was coming up, I had a billion cousins, a billion cousins, and like we were all together, right? It was always we make sure we looked out for one another, and we didn't go in certain environments unless we had, it was more than one of us, right? So it's just like we have to go back to that and refresh on a lot of that. What's going on right now is a result of that being diluted and not being passed down, right? So again, that's an environment where he was under the tent. All these white guys came down, got into that argument, been a different story had his network around him had been different, right? So personal diplomacy power, again, discernment in terms of information power, and being able to discern intuition and see something like that coming your way. That's preparedness, right? Because even if from a personal military power is about being ready, right? Mentally ready, financially ready, physically fit, nutrition, all that. That's military power from a personal standpoint. But even if he had that, being outnumbered the way he was, that still would have been an issue. So then it comes back to discernment, his circle, not going into certain environments if you're the only one, right? We got to start to teach that and refresh that we used to do back in, yeah.
Yes. So I guess what is just drawing from that experience and the Carmelo Anthony experience from what we know and the book, what would a more powerful response have been?
Yes, that's difficult. That's real difficult to say. I mean, the default would have been, let me just get up and leave the tent and go off, uh, by myself. I'm not, but I don't know the details of whether they may
Right.
follow him, so I don't know all of that. That would have been the first solution. Let me get out of this environment, right? Let me call my brother or cousins or whomever, right? Let me call and say, hey, this is going on. Um, so a couple of things that could have been done there, but I think it happened so quickly for them coming down there that he reacted, right? I don't say I wouldn't have reacted any different if they had came down. And I had something in my hand. I got two bullies or whatever it is coming in my way. We don't know all the details behind that,
Right.
but we just got to take a different approach. We got to tell our kids, African American kids, we got to take a different approach going forward.
And it is difficult. It is difficult these days because, like you said, we are dispersed and we're not where we once were. We got homogenized to some degree. We got homogenized out there to some degree. So now that we're talking about our communities, as far as personal power as a parent, and we want to make sure that our kids are prepared, uh, based on the book,
Yeah.
what would you tell your three top advice?
It's hard. It's hard to pick one by itself because
Okay.
they work all together, integrated. But it's always going to start with the most powerful instrument of power is diplomacy, right? It's the relationships and networks that you build, right? That's the most powerful one, and then strategically using that to your advantage, right? So that starts there. But then, you know, readiness from the personal military power, being ready, um, information power and intelligence power definitely understand the information, personal information power, vetting that power, right? Vetting that information, understand what's disinformation or misinformation, right? Being able to vet that and balance that. and then turning that into intelligence. Once you analyze the power, you turn it into intelligence power. That's how it gets applied once it becomes intelligence. I gathered it through information power, but once I apply it, it becomes intelligent power, right? And so we got to get back to that and teaching our kids strategically how to do these things, especially as things get worse. Things are not going to get better, right? Things are going to get worse, right? And it's grounded on the Bible, you know that, on God and faith. But you have to use them integrated. It's not one by itself. They have to be integrated. They have to be like personal political power, right? Vote, being part of your community, right? Vote, march, protest, run for office, right? Personal political power helps influence your own community, your local community, to try to change some of the laws and acts that are going on in that respect.
So I know people watching are saying, what qualifies you as this power guru?
That's a good question. So, as a major, right, 04, in order to make 04 and become a major, you have to go through training on how to conduct war, right? So it's called Air Command and Staff College or Command and Staff College. That's where they teach you how to conduct war. That's where you learn Sun Tzu and Clausewitz on how to do battle and conduct war. And part of that is learning what the national instruments of power are. So our nation has instruments of power: diplomacy, information power, military power, economic power. Then we have financial power, intelligence, and law enforcement power. And we use that to deal with our adversaries every day. So secretaries of state and Pentagon, et cetera, they use all these instruments of power to deal with our enemies and adversaries. So if we can do it at a national level, right? We're the most powerful nation on the earth. Why can't we take those same instruments of power and apply them personally? And that's what I did in this book. So 32 years, military, Air Command and Staff College, Academy of Military Science. That's where they can teach you how to conduct war. That's what influenced this book from an instruments of power standpoint and the framework behind it. Also being in corporate America, right? So I've used these instruments of power in corporate America, diplomacy power, who I strategically created relationships with when I knew I wanted to move in a certain direction, or friendships that I built that I knew if I left this company, I could come back, right? Because I had built certain relationships in that respect. So that's what qualifies me for it is, 32 years in corporate and parallel career in the military, and then the training from Command and Staff College on how to do that.
Very good. So what is the biggest misconception about what power really is?
I think a misconception is around ego and bravado, right? When really the best power and the most powerful power is diplomacy power and being in stealth mode, implementing these powers, right? That's how you become more powerful, right? For example, let's take Trump for example. He's out here always in the news, always on social media, always on Truth Social, bravado, right? And I know for a fact behind the scenes what China's doing. China's one of the most stealth in terms of their military power and how they and their national instruments of power very stealthy, and so they're always, you don't see it, but they're always beating us out because they have the opposite mentality of it's not boasting, it's not letting people know what you're doing or what you're gonna do, right? No bravado there, so it makes them more powerful, and that's the one reason out of every nation that Trump's afraid of, China's number one. Now he'll talk in the media, but policy behind the scenes, they're the number one nation because they have so much of an economic stronghold on us because of all the things we outsource to them, right? Same thing with India. He won't attack India either. Again, we have so much outsourced to India, especially from a intelligence, computer science, and IT career field, and what they handle and process for us. He's not going to do anything with them either. So certain nations that use their instruments of power in a smart way, not being, like I said, bravado and always telling what you're going to do, always showing your hand the way Trump does, right? It actually makes us weak behind the scenes. I'm really shocked that nothing really drastic has happened to the United States in the last year. I'm really shocked. But on the news the other day, it's been like in 1 year, he's had like 400 times the number of terrorist attempts on the United States that Biden had in all 4 years, right? And that's the reason behind it.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. And, you know, because I think, I would say we watch a lot of television. I know Power was probably a lot of people's favorite series. And so you always think about power or powerful people being just real dominating and domineering. And so when we think about, I know you said the basis for the book, the basis for the book? Am I saying- Okay, I'll just speak louder. That the basis for the book is faith.
Yes.
So when you're looking at power from a worldly perspective, and even from a military perspective, how do you balance that with the kingdom perspective?
Oh, that's a good question. That is really a good question. I guess they both went out.
The mics
The
went.
whites went out. So, yeah. Um, Good question from a worldly perspective. So, from a worldly perspective, again, that's what you see from Trump, right? That worldly perspective on how he deals with things, right? Um, when if you took a non-worldly position where faith and your trust in God, it's more strategic. Everything becomes more strategic. Again, following the values and principles of the Bible, right? No bravado, um, service before self, right? Think about people first. So that's the difference, right? You're thinking about people first. You're thinking about how you apply these instruments of power to help your community, not just yourself but your community, right? And to do that, so that's a different perspective, right, than the worldly perspective of me by myself, and I'm only concerned about me. This is a different. It's about community. It's about yourself, your family, right, and how to do that.
Very good. And just one last question as we start getting ready for you to sign. We have, um, I had said this is a great book for, unfortunately, we have a lot of our young people and older people now that have been incarcerated. As they prepare to come out, or even those who may have longer terms and may not get out,
Right.
how do they use this book to help shift their mindset?
Right. So for those that are on their way out, it will help give them a foundation, right, of how to implement these things and to make their life better, right? So every instrument in the book about if they're on their way out, what relationships are they going either back to, or new relationships they need to establish, right, to uh, uh, to achieve their goals and objectives. So that would be diplomacy, right? The right information around obtaining what they need to do to change their life or make their lives better than it was before by being incarcerated. Personal military power. What am I do to get ready, right? So I talk about storms, right? Everybody, we're gonna have valleys and storms that come into our life. Everybody's gonna face a valley or storm. Being ready, right? Being financially ready, being mentally and emotionally ready, being physically ready. Those are key to get through those storms. So we're all gonna face them. If you want to get through them, why not be ready to go through those? So that would be, applied to them coming out. Also, in economic power, what sources of income they're going to start to bring in, multiple streams, learn, right? Education, learning about that, financial power, how to keep it, intelligence power, how to take the information and turn back around and apply it strategically in your life. And then, of course, law enforcement power. Law enforcement power is about setting boundaries with people. It's about learning to say no, right? Making sure you communicate this is the boundary that I'm setting, right? The reason behind it, and then sticking to that. That's going to be really key uh, to those individuals coming out, not going back to the same environment.
And reaffirming their purpose
Exactly.
or discovering what their true purpose really
Exactly.
is.
Exactly. They get an opportunity to do that coming out and doing that. And the book is a framework and the instruments of power. There are other books that influence, for example, my chapter on personal economic power. There's books that influence like What the Rich Invest in and the Poor Middle Class Don't by Robert Kiyosaki, right? That helps influence their personal economic power and personal financial power. Tax Wealth, I got the author's name, that helps influence personal financial power. Of course, our own doctrine around conducting war and how we do war impacts personal military power, um, and then diplomacy, right? Our diplomatic. We have a doctrine on diplomacy, right? That influences that chapter too. So all this is influenced by not just it's influenced by my experience, my training, my education, but also by others that have contributed and within those particular realms that I brought in, that I've read, followed, studied, implemented, and then brought into the book.
And I did share with my mom, and she agreed. I was like, "Oh, Lord, have mercy." I was like, y'all gave me a great spiritual and religious foundation, but we never, ever, ever discussed strategy. I don't ever remember sitting down and just kind of having a like chess, like we're going to talk about if this is going to be your decision,
Right.
this is the why.
Yeah.
These are the consequences, whether you go right or left. And we never had that conversation. And so, what in your background
Yeah.
led to this? Because,
That's a good question. Most people don't are never taught strategy. I don't think, I'm probably less than 10% of the population that have been taught strategy. And so, coming from a military family, we've had somewhere between 70 and 90 members that have come through the military. And it was by default, it was just built into the DNA of our family. And, I saw my uncles, my older cousins, how they conducted themselves, how they thought, how they did things, businesses they started, the level of achievement that they achieved. What drove that? It was about strategy, learning strategy. We've had family members as far back as the Revolutionary War that have been in the military all the way up through now. And so by default, it was taught. And then if you look at the Bible and the way the laws are in the Bible and how things are, professed as to how conduct business, et cetera, et cetera. That's in the Bible too, right? That structure around money is in the Bible too. But so for strategy standpoint, primarily my family being around military, so many military members my whole life, and the discipline from a biblical standpoint, and then so that's where it came from, right? That strategy and being taught that, and then of course my education from Command and Staff College and Academy of Military Science, right? Strategy. So I've tried to turn around and do that with other people in my family, children, etc., and trying to teach strategy, because that's what's going to get you through life is having a strategy for how to navigate chaos, especially now, and it's not going to get any better. So, especially with AI rolling in, the chaos is there. Learning how to strategically navigate this life is going to be really important. That's what this book does, is lay out that framework for strategy. So you don't have to think and bring it up and learn it yourself. It's already there to learn strategy and implement it and just eliminate the chaos, right? Stabilize your environment and move forward.
Okay. Any questions from our audience? Guys, any questions? Okay. Well, if
Was that your first book?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And are you going to be doing a follow-up book?
I don't know. If I did a follow book, it'll focus on. If I did one, I'd take 2 chapters. There's 8 chapters, right? For example, if I did another book, I'd focus one on just economic and financial power, or military and law enforcement power, or diplomacy and information and intelligence power, right? So there may be some sub books coming out in the future. I may be putting some out in the future. We'll see, but this is the first one. We'll see how it does. I think it's good for our community for sure.
Are you teaching any of these principles to kids or to adults, or they just have to pick up the book and read it?
Right now, I'm picking up the book. I've talked to my cousins. Have talked to me about coming to the church on Wednesday. Been teaching it. Of course, my children and grandchildren, teaching them. So, but I haven't formally got out and mentored anybody outside of my family at this point.
but I think that's going to change. I see a question back here.
Okay.
Oh, I can. Oh, okay, okay.
What inspired you to write the book, and who was the target audience for this book?
That's a good question. Yeah. So, what inspired me to write it was the first Trump administration with all the chaos that was going on and disruption to our norms, right? We saw that in the first Trump administration that inspired me to start writing it. And then again, like I said earlier, I put it on the shelf during President Biden and Kamala because they came in. I didn't think Trump would get reelected and we'd be back in this position. So, but he did, and so that's what caused me to pull it back off the shelf and write it. So the audience is any and everybody. So strategies, we were just saying, strategies is not taught normally, right? There's a couple of things that are not taught, and there's a reason they're not taught. So there's a method behind that. Financial literacy is not taught unless you go take it in college, right? It's not taught by default. Strategy is not taught because if you don't learn that, if I keep you ignorant to that, then I have the power, right? I control it. I control the finance. I control the economic policies, all the policies that go on from a strategy standpoint. Because if I keep the people ignorant, I can control the power in that respect. So I put it out here for any and everybody. So Zeus read it. He's 12 years old. Zeus. So from 12 years old up, I would say, hey, this is a book that we want to get in everybody's hand to read it and start applying it immediately. Question.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Am I the next one?
Oh yeah.
I liked her question regarding Carmela and some of the young men in society, right? So you have a Carmela situation, you got the Noah situation.
Yeah.
But the elephant in the room is the parents. And I heard you touch on parents briefly.
Yeah.
But and I think this is a good book to strategize with parents. So often we want to, get the Zeus in the room to read the book, and that's great. But if Zeus read the book and, not to say his parents didn't read the book, but his parents didn't read the book, there's two different mentalities.
That's right.
And socialization within one household.
Yeah.
And some's going to supersede the other,
That's
and
right.
then the other one is going to follow suit. So you get a whole.
Yeah.
Zeus, I'm sorry, I just, for example, not to say that your parents are not. Okay.
No, you're right. To have the knowledge, right? To read this book and have the knowledge. If you're in an environment where other people do not have it, you're going to be very frustrated, right? Very frustrated. If any child that reads this between 12 and 18 years old, I would say the parents should read it too. That should be mandatory that they read it because it's going to be definitely a conflict. That the person that gains this knowledge is going to see things, right? That things are going to become aware of. That they normally would become aware of, right? That's going to cause conflict. So you would definitely want the parents in the household to get this, right? To be able to implement this. But in the times we're in right now, the economic times and the chaos that we're in right now, any and everybody that can get this book should be reading it, right? You're going to have to navigate through this chaos. And these instruments of power are definitely something we need to implement as soon as possible.
Any other questions? Okay, Major, so what do you want the audience watching and those here? What's the major takeaway?
I mean, it's a strategy, right? It's trying to get through this time because again, it's not going to get any better. Even when Trump leaves office, right? There's still going to be forces out there that try to derail us and cause the chaos that it's coming. It just the Bible plays out the way it's written, and but to navigate that, right? Using these instruments of power is what I want everybody to get out of it. Is using these to navigate, stay stable, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, to create that stabilization in your life, and then passing it down to your children, right? So they can get it and they're stabilized. So that's what I want everybody to get out of it.
Well, thank you, Major, for your time.
Thank you.
And I told y'all the objective of today was to get the book, read the book, and learn what you can do to enhance your own personal power and find your own deficiencies, because I had a plethora of deficiencies. So it's helped me with my personal boundaries like a lot. And it didn't even take past the first couple of pages. So anyway, I hope y'all get the book. get it signed, take a picture with Major Green. I told him this was a very anointed effort, more so than just a book, because it is one of those books that'll just keep on giving generation after generation.
Okay. And Major, talk about your upcoming event,
Oh,
where they can find you.
Where is it?
Saturday,
Saturday?
September 12th.
September 12th, Trinity River
Book Festival.
Yeah, Trinity River Book Festival.
That's the next
So
episode.
remember that. September
Yes.
12th.
All right.
And,
And
September 12th.
and don't forget,
What's that?
author of the year.
Oh, I forgot about that. So I was selected. I was nominated. That means nominated as author of the year, but I don't have the website in front of me. But it's the Impact Global Awards. If you look that up,
awesome.
so nominated for that. So we'll see what happens on that.
Where is that at?
Okay.
Is that in Dallas?
This international organization ran out of Los Angeles. They, I think, run out of California, but it's for globally. It's for all authors globally. So they did an assessment, they read the reviews online, and said, "Hey, we're gonna nominate you for author of the year." So we'll see. But you have to get votes. The board did their voting. You don't know what that is, and then you have to go ahead and then publicize it and try to get everybody to vote for it. So that's out there on the website. I know you guys have promoted it on the Facebook. So
Oh,
Yes,
wonderful.
so you can find it on the Major's Facebook. It is on Kingdom Culture Radio, and it's also on Turn Up the Lights. So you can go and vote for the Major there to help him get this prestigious and well-deserved award.
thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.